She got sick a couple of weeks ago, and she had an operation. The operation went fine, and she is in rehabilitation right now, so we probably won't see her for another month or so. But thank God the operation went well. So that's a good news. Okay? I'm sorry?
I say send her.
We certainly will. Gee, I should have brought the card. You could have signed one. Didn't think of it. Okay. Now, my pleasure to present to you careful for our bylaw committee.
I have no idea.
As you know, the bylaw committee has been working on amending our bylaws for the committee, the bylaw committee. And Ivan is the chair of the committee, and and the two John Carter and John Biscarello are two members. The other members are Doug.
Yeah, Doug Simmons.
That's
Maitri, who will probably be joining us later.
And
Jeanette Rodriguez Morris.
Okay, so without much ado, I'll give Ivan the
Thank you.
chair.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Yes, so this evening, I should say, we're here to fulfill one of the requirements of the Bylaws Committee, which is to meet with MGCA to present the proposals that we have made to change the bylaws that referred to the Bylaws Committee. This came about because last year the board, some communication took place between the board of directors and council. And as a result of that, regarding the Bylaws Committee, as a result of that, council pointed out that our bylaws regarding the Bylaws Committee, its function, and how it's constituted are in violation with the New York Business Corporation Law. So upon getting that information, the board last year decided to become the Bylaws Committee, which is allowed by the NYBCL. But they could have fixed this bylaw at that time, but they apparently never got to it and didn't have the opportunity to get to it, because the fact is that the board has a lot of work to do. And trying to be the Bylaws Committee as well is an overwhelming task, and so they didn't succeed at that. So that was one of the options that we could have used this year. In any case, it wasn't changed, and then in June, at the regular meeting of the Board of Directors, President Dodonna, otherwise known as Larry, appointed me as the Bylaws Committee Chair, and in addition to that, he appointed 5 other members of the board to be on this committee. Now, in fact, our current bylaws section 46, states that, of course, that the Bylaws Committee shall be 6. Those of us who have been here long enough know that. And it also allows for the chair of MGCA to appoint 3 of those members, and the president of the corporation appoints the other 3. Because we know that there is a conflict in that section alone, the chair of MGCA, Tova Frankus, waived her right to appoint 3 members of the committee, which allowed Larry to appoint all 6, which allowed us to be both in compliance with our own bylaws and in compliance with NYBCL. And that's how this committee came to be. And we were given one charge by the president, and that was to fix this bylaw so that we would be in compliance with the New York Business Corporation Law. And so that's what we have been working on, and we have come up with a solution, and we have already conferred with council regarding that solution. And of course, we had a few options, and as I said, one of them would be continue to allow the board to be the Bylaws Committee. But it didn't work last year, so we thought it was just as well not to revisit that solution. We also could have just had a committee, a small committee of board members to be the bylaws committee, but in that case, they still have to report to the entire board. And so we thought the problem last year was that it was difficult for board members to do this work, so why try the same thing again, even on a smaller scale? The other consideration was that we wanted to keep as close as we could to the spirit of the original bylaw without violating New York City Business Corporation law.
New York State.
New York State, sorry, Business Corporation law, New York NYBCL. And so we found a solution by creating a bylaws advisory committee, because there are a number of stipulations in the NYBCL that our bylaws committee really is not allowed to do.
The bylaw is constituted presently.
Sorry?
The bylaw is constituted presently.
Yes, constituted presently, and in the past. In the future, I know we have fixed the problem. Council has verified that we have fixed the problem. For example, one of the items that the bylaws committee is not allowed to do, according to NYBCL, is to submit to the shareholders any action that needs shareholders' approval, which is what the bylaws committee up until last year did. And only the board can amend or repeal or present amendments to the current bylaws or the adoption of new bylaws. And our current bylaw allows the bylaws committee to do that. So we had to deal with that as well. We made it an advisory committee because actually the NYBCL allows for committees, a committee like the bylaws committee, but it has to be made up of board members if it's a committee of the board. And so we found a solution by making it an advisory committee. This gives us the option, has given us the option of allowing more than just board members to be on the committee, as it has been before. Now, so what we have come up with, and we'll go through the papers, I know you just got them, and the first page contains a chart which lays out the authority that the board of directors has, and then the bottom of the chart shows you what the bylaws advisory committee is allowed to do. And there are plenty of copies if you don't have one. Did you get one? As I see you sitting there. Okay. Behind you. You think you need one or two. At least Peggy needs one. And maybe Bernie needs one as well. So let's make sure everybody has one. We will eventually go over that. So we had a lot of issues. We wanted to maintain this, when MGCA was created, and the reason why, if you look at our original, if you know your bylaws and you don't have your bylaws here, it allows for, as I told you before, for the chair of MGCA to pick 3 people for this committee. And that allows for diversity. If it's just the board on this bylaws committee, there is no diversity. And it doesn't allow for shareholders who have served on the board before but are not serving anymore to serve. It doesn't allow for anyone who has served on the bylaws committee before to serve on it. If we were just to go strictly by the NYBCL, we wanted to find a way to allow shareholders to contribute to the workings of this corporation and to continue to contribute to making proposed amendments to our bylaws. And so with the advisory committee, we can have shareholders appointed to this committee. And what we've decided to do, we do need a board member, at least one board member on this committee. And so we've decided that we would have no more than 3 board members on the bylaws advisory committee. Now, MGCA will no longer be able to choose 3 members of this committee. The committees have to be formed by the board in some way. And so, rather than have the president appoint everybody, we wanted to, again, try to retain the diversity that we have right now, because, you know, MGCA knows a lot of different people other than who board members know. You know, you really limit the choice if you just have the board president choosing members of this committee. So what we did was we built into this new into this proposed amendment that all board members can make nominations to this committee, and the entire board will vote on them. And we also will retain that the committee itself, once it's formed, will choose its own officers and will make its own dates, so that it has a little bit of its own independence. Now, the committee will be able to make its own proposals, but the proposals will be to the board, recommendations to the board. Yeah, and all those too. Right? Okay. And the board, the president or the board can direct the committee to explore an issue, just as we were asked to work on this very, very important change, because it's really important that we go forward not having any sort of legal conflict with NYBCL. I mean, that's really why we need to do this now and do it immediately. And so the committee worked really hard and very fast and very thoroughly to ensure that what we do propose is legal and we can move forward. And as I said, it's really important to retain some of what was the intent originally, which is to keep this diversity on the community. It's really, really important. You know, we've been able to choose, as I said before, past board members or people who had served on the committee before, or new shareholders who want to contribute and are interested in working on a committee like this. If we go strictly by NYBCL, all of that's out. So, so that's what we have done. And as you know, we are going to have 2 more meetings. We're required right now to have a meeting first with the board. We presented to the board. And the board approved our proposed changes. Council has already vetted it and has approved what we have changed. It's all legal. And now we're presenting to MGCA. And on Sunday afternoon, we'll be having another meeting for all shareholders, whoever can attend, from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the recreation room. And then again, we've added an additional one, although we don't have to have it, but we want to give as many people as possible to come and hear what we have to say and to ask questions. So on Wednesday evening, we'll be holding another meeting, also in the rec room, from 7:30 p.m. till 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So we want everyone to really understand what's going on. This is a technical and legal issue that we need to resolve, and we need to do it now.
May I say something?
Yes, sir.
This issue is so important to the health of the corporation, because without changing this bylaw and bringing it in conformity with the New York Business Corporation law requirement, we cannot present to the shareholders in the future any other bylaw to change that may need changing. We can't do anything. This must be changed now for us to proceed as a corporation as we're supposed to proceed.
Thank you. That is absolutely correct. Any changes that we would make other than this one could be challenged.
Right.
I mean, it just wouldn't be the right thing to do. We don't need that. We'll take questions afterwards. Did I leave anything out, John? Am I doing okay here? Am I giving all the information, John? Yes.
I would just add 2 things. The idea of making it an advisory committee did come directly from council, by the way, and also we worked at many different ideas. the committee, we were 6, and we explored many possible, playing out all different scenarios, and it took quite a long time to get to what we think is probably the best solution in going with the spirit of the community, as well as making the bylaw in line with what the corporation law is suggesting.
That's true. And, historically, I mean, when MGCA was created, we had a board of outsiders. There were people, right, remember? Yeah. I mean, I was a kid, but I remember that. I mean, that's a very big part of our history. And so MGCA, we had created this bylaw, the current bylaw, so that the shareholders could have some input in the community in which they live in and the laws that would govern it. And now we've reached a stage where, and up until 2007, by the way, I believe it's 1/5.
09.
Or was it 09? Was it 1/5 of the board could still be comprised of non-shareholders? And so, very, very importantly, I think it was still very important for MGCA to be able to appoint shareholders to the bylaws committee. But now the board of directors is all shareholders, and we are us. And so that should be a little comfort as far as the change goes, where MGCA is no longer choosing people, but certainly we have, board members who know different shareholders, who would know shareholders who would be interested in working on this committee, or shareholders who have experience working on this committee. And so I think we can still create a good, diverse committee, and not have our hands tied by the NYBCL. And that was really what we were hoping to achieve. So if you want to take a look at what we have here, to make it very simple, we created this chart. And it basically tells you, in a nutshell, what's going on with the rest of the pages, which actually show you the bylaws and the strike-throughs, the things that will be eliminated. So the board of directors really is the only organ that has the authority to submit directly to the shareholders any amendment or repeal of the bylaws or the adoption of new bylaws directly to the stockholders that either originated from recommendations by the soon-to-be formed bylaws advisory committee. And by the way, a shareholder initiative that can take place. And by the way, a shareholder can also make suggestions to the bylaws advisory committee to look into an issue if they want, or from the board itself. Only the board, currently our bylaws allow the advisory committee to adopt technical corrections to the bylaws without a shareholder vote, but only the board would be able to do that because that's in compliance with NYBCL. But the board of directors will have the authority to direct the bylaws advisory committee to make proposals to amend existing laws, or to create new bylaws, or to rescind existing bylaws, and to report to the board with its recommendations. Technically, our current bylaws allowed the bylaws committee to report directly to the shareholders. That actually was never done, because it says also that the bylaws committee has to report to the board first, then to MGCA, then to the shareholders. But because of the language is very technical, and because our bylaw says that the bylaws committee is allowed to propose directly to the shareholders, that's a big problem. That was a very big problem. We can't have that in our bylaw. So that's what we are going to eliminate. And of course, the board of directors will consult with corporate counsel to ensure that the proposals are in compliance with the BCL. The bylaws advisory committee will have the authority to do the following, and that is to propose to the board any amendment or repeal of the bylaws or the adoption of new bylaws. It can be requested by the board to recommend changes and to the bylaws and to submit to the board proposed amendments. It can draft on its own, draft or propose technical corrections. It can propose it, but the board is the only one that can approve those things. Because quite honestly, who on the board has the time to look technical corrections are things like renumbering the sections, changing a comma or a period. We need people who have the time to go through that and make those kinds of corrections. Believe me, the board has very little time to do that. It will be an advisory committee to the board. And it's important that we state that it's an advisory committee to the board. That's very important, because then it delineates that the board is the only one that can propose directly to the stockholders. It will be comprised of 6 members. At least 1, but no more than 3, will be members of the board. The candidates will be nominated by the board of directors, and the members shall be elected by a majority vote of the board of directors. And so, of course, as annually, this committee will be reconstituted as it is right now. We will continue to do that. Now, we do have a bylaw that refers to the bylaws committee, which is section 46, which is not on the first page of your readout here, but that's really the bylaw that relates directly to the bylaws committee. The only thing is that, you know, if you look at your bylaws often enough and long enough, there are always other bylaws that are some way connected directly or indirectly to another bylaw. And so we had to change other bylaws in order to make all of the bylaws compliant with the NYDCL. And, you know, in some, it may just be half of a phrase, but it had to be changed. So section 46 is the one that deals with the bylaws committee, and as you can see, we added that it is an advisory committee. Now, I don't know, do you want to go through each one of these? No. Yes?
No.
Okay.
If I may?
Basically it. So there's a lot of strike-throughs on that one. So, okay, we won't go through that one. Of course, amendment of the bylaws, we had to address that, because we had to add that only the board shall have the authority to make the non-substantive amendments, which is what I talked about before. And also there's a reference to the Morningside Gardens Cooperative Assembly, which had to be eliminated, since they will no longer, the assembly will no longer be appointing anyone to this committee. So that had to be changed, and that's why section 69, section 69, well, that's also 24. I was referring also to 69. 24 is the MGCA, is the relations with organizations of tenant cooperators. We had to strike out just one piece of a phrase, which is except as provided in section 46. So in your leisure time, you can go back and forth and refer to what has been struck out. Now, formally, in section 69, it allowed the bylaws committee and the board of directors to each, at its discretion, include a notice of the meeting. Of course, only the board of directors can do that. Okay, and another thing is in Section 8. Section 8 we're striking out completely because the board doesn't need, it's Section 8G in if you have your book. The board doesn't need to make recommendations since it's the only one making recommendations. I don't know, for those of you who've been here long enough, you know that if the board chose to, they could write a recommendation and include it in the packet with your ballot. And sometimes they recommended to vote against something, which meant that the bylaws committee could bring something to the shareholders, even if the board didn't approve it. Now, whatever comes to the shareholders has to be approved by the board. So that virtually eliminates the board's, we don't have to have a section of a bylaw stating that the board can make a recommendation. The board will probably write an explanation or a recommendation for a bylaws change, okay? Before it was because the bylaws committee could, so maybe if the board wanted to, they could. And so that section will be completely struck out. It's just not relatable anymore. The other thing is since all of these sections are connected and you can't change one without changing the other, when you receive your ballot, which the vote, this will come to a vote in November, in mid-November, you'll just have to make one vote for all of the changes, because you can't change one without changing the other, and council has...
Right, direction of council.
Yes, under the direction of council, he has recommended, not stated that that's the way that we should vote on this. It doesn't make sense to vote no on section 8 and yes on another. You have to either vote yes or no. And of course, a yes is very important, because in order to move forward and have a viable bylaws, working bylaws committee, we need to pass this and be in compliance, as I said before, with the NYBCL. So if Larry or John have nothing else to add, we'll take your questions. Yes, Andrea.
I have two questions. One is more, I think it's maybe an observation, but now, assuming that this will pass, that the bylaws committee is advisory, isn't it now that, my understanding of all the board committees are that they are in essence advisory, so that they can't make decisions. Anything that's discussed is brought to the board.
That's right, and that's a very good...
Any committee cannot decide to do something without the board's bringing it and voting on it. So now this is in line with the other board committees. Am I right?
Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
I mean, committees can decide if they want, say, to spend money via their budget, and if it's approved by the treasurer, then they can go ahead and do that. So,
but my recollection of the descriptions of all the standing committees, in essence, they are advise, suggest, rather than what is now the case where it has the phrase, even though it never happened, that the bylaws committee could present to stockholders.
That's right.
That was the only committee that had that phrasing, even though I know it didn't happen in practice.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And so we have to change the language. The other, if you look at the bylaws for the other committees, they say that they make recommendations to the board. Even the finance committee has to make recommendations to the board. They really cannot make, or should not make decisions without board. They can't make any decisions without board approval. And you're right. This language is unique to the bylaws committee bylaw.
Right. It was just a way of, if we called it a bylaws committee, by law, it would be the board. So it was just a way of accentuating the fact that it was just an advisory committee to the board, and this was the easiest way we came up with.
Yeah.
And if
I wanted to be clear. Yeah, you said you had two questions. Part two.
But in the reference here, it says,
tell me where you're reading.
This is the last page.
Yes.
And after the underline section, and this is discussing bringing to the stockholders. So they have advance notice prior to a meeting. Does subsection 8F, does that give a time frame for when that can be done? In other words, is there a time frame, a minimum, maximum number of times, that has to be?
There is a minimum.
Is that in 8F?
Yes, and of course that we cannot tamper with, and we have no intention.
So that still exists, a time frame?
That still exists. It has, yes, everything still exists. Everything has to come to the shareholders, except when we change periods and commas. Robert, you have a question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions that are all related. If I understand you correctly, stockholder initiatives regarding amendments to or proposals for amendments to bylaws, proposals for new bylaws, are also have the same status as recommendations by the bylaws committee, in that they are simply recommendations to the board, and they are no longer going to pass through the board, irrespective of what the board thinks about them, to the shareholders. Am I correct about that? And is that required by New York State Business Corporation law? And if it's not required by Business Corporation law, then why does it appear that the board has the authority over every amendment that is the authority to either present or not present to the shareholders any amendment or change that comes through any vehicle to the board? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It was a little
I wasn't
convoluted.
quite clear, but the board seems to have the authority to not only propose, but not to propose any proposed amendments that come from the Bylaws Advisory Committee.
No other entity.
And also, any stockholder initiative, which would be, I think it's 100 plus signatures
15%.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
That's what,
15%.
and that's what the Business Corporation law says, that stockholders don't have a right to propose to other stockholders by initiative.
It's not being changed, Robert. There's nothing in front of you that says
We didn't
that.
touch
Not a bylaw.
that. We didn't touch that.
Okay, so the board doesn't have absolute authority over bylaws. Stockholders have an independent voice if they go through the channel, not of the bylaws
A
committee,
stockholder
but
initiative of
of
15%,
the-
and they
Right.
present it at the annual, in time for the annual
Yeah.
meeting.
But
Yeah, yes.
this does not have the power of a bylaw. This has the power of asking the board, or recommending to the board to do something. The shareholder initiative cannot change the bylaw. When it's a shareholder initiative, if you've been in it for a while, you know, there was shareholder initiative asking the board to look at the budget. There was shareholder initiative.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm talking about the bylaws specifically.
No,
Changing bylaws.
No, the
Or adding.
the initiative an initiative will not change the bylaw. What the initiative is, recommendation to the board to please do something.
No, this initiative I'm talking about is the right of stockholders by petition to recommend, not to the board, but to the shareholders.
Why don't you tell us which clause?
Give us an
Robert,
example.
tell us which clause you're citing.
Give us
Don't
an-
just tell us something in the air. Read it
All
to
right, I'll
us.
have to, I don't have the bylaws before me, and I'm asking you,
You're
because
talking
you're the
about
bylaws
our
committee
bylaws?
addressing this issue.
It's-
You
We're
should know,
addressing the
where is
bylaws
that?
committee.
It's
That's
what-
the issue being.
This is what we're addressing.
Could you, I didn't bring my bylaws, so I can't cite it right now, but it is in our bylaws
I think it's
that
20.
stockholders have the right
Yeah.
to present to the stockholders through petition a bylaw amendment or a new bylaw. And I'm asking, do they still have that?
Robert, are you holding anything in your hand that says they don't?
I'm not, but
Are you seeing anything in writing that says that?
Yes, it says, all that was said, the board at its discretion may accept proposals to the bylaws.
No. Did you see anything in the stuff presented to you that says we're striking any bylaw that deals with shareholder initiative?
No, it was just in your characterization of what you did.
Well, what
You can't
In
change-
here and
There's
in
no
the...
characterization. The only thing that's being changed is
Okay.
what you see here. So if you don't see the shareholder initiative on any of these pages, it has not been
Okay, so
touched.
I'm just then questioning the
That's all, that's
characterization
really, that's the simple
of what you're
question.
doing
Yeah,
here.
simple question and simple
Both
answer.
as you present it and as you wrote it out here, because it appeared to me
No, you
that
need
that
to-
was what you were
You
doing.
need to look at the
No,
clauses that
we-
are being dealt with, Robert. You can't just
Right.
appear to be doing something. It has to be what's been done and handed to you. Because we're not going to hand you a piece of paper that's deceptive or misleading. We're handing you a piece of paper that's dealing with very specific bylaws and how they're going to be changed. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, well, then you should strike number 4 of
Well,
board
wait, no,
authority
no. This is just an out. Let me
proposals.
clarify, Robert. This is an outline.
Yeah.
This was basically just to
Yeah.
give you an idea of what was
Yeah.
going on. This is part of what you will get. This in your packet.
Yeah, I'll
There's
look at
nothing
that.
here, and there's nothing here.
Right, I wasn't trying to be contentious here, I was just trying to clarify.
We
And I do
cannot-
think that
We-
the outline,
I want you to know that the bylaws committee never has, as far as, and I've been on it a number of times,
right,
including this time, present one thing and then put something else in the packet.
Right. So-
What you see is what you'll get. There will be nothing in there referring to
Right.
a shareholder initiative. All we wanted to deal with was the bylaws committee itself. And the shareholder initiative is a totally separate item, totally separate. We really, really
right. And it
kept-
is in conformance with Business Corporation, New York Business Corporation law.
Absolutely.
In connection with that, that is with...
Well, let's not say that. We can't tell you that it's conformance with business corporation law because we haven't asked our attorney to look at that particular clause. The only clauses we asked him to look at
Yeah, this
were the
is-
bylaws committee. So now if you want us to examine that, we will get an opinion from the attorney and tell us if we have to change that after we get the most important one changed, which is this one. This is the only thing the shareholders will be voting on, is the change dealing with the bylaws committee. And if this is not changed, nothing else can be dealt with because it opens the board and the shareholders to liability.
Right, and that was the second question. Given that the procedure that has been followed for years is one that is not in conformance with business corporation law, are our bylaws as adopted during this period valid or above challenge?
Say this again, please.
Given that we have been violating business corporation law and adopting bylaws for all these years, are the bylaws that were adopted while we were violating New York
No, we
Business
asked him that
Corporation
question.
law valid?
No, he didn't tell us that. It came before him. He knows about all the other bylaw changes. He never wrote an opinion that said that. It's only because if it had not been asked of him last year by the president of corporation
Right.
to do away with the bylaws committee as it was constituted, we would never have this issue. We'd be going on pleasantly, happily along. But because the question was asked, we are under the gun and under the law required to change it because now we have knowledge.
Knowledge. Once you have knowledge, you need to change it. But
Well,
before you
but-
didn't have knowledge,
Yeah, but the fact that we now have knowledge doesn't
That does
change
not-
the fact that we didn't do it correctly.
I just told you, the attorney said there's no issue to go backwards on it. It's all going forward.
Excuse me, let me answer
Okay,
this
so there
point.
is no liability then?
No, there is no liability because according to our bylaws, the shareholder vote on amending the bylaws. And regardless of how it was given to us, since the shareholder voted on the
That's right.
various
Authorized
amendments, we are okay.
Okay. Should I?
No, okay, Bradley.
In recognition of the extensive work the committee done with this revision, will we have the opportunity tonight to vote for or against your efforts? Can MGCA vote in favor of something to pass on to the board? I'd like to do that as soon as possible.
you can, what do they call that?
An opinion, yeah, I think we can.
You could. I
I'd
mean,
love
there's
to
nothing
say
wrong
let's
with
vote.
it. Yeah.
Okay, before we do that,
What is he saying?
whether
He wants to make
MGCA
a
can recommend,
resolution recommend.
Oh, sure.
and we can, yeah, and it will go into the package, I believe. There is one comment I'd like to make.
No, it won't go into the package.
It will be going to the
It will
recommendation.
go, no, it can't go in the package. It can't go in the package, but it will go out as part of our communication to the shareholders.
Right.
Okay, I like to, may I?
Yes, yes.
Okay, John Carter.
Wait.
You stated that committees can spend money without board approval. That was true until about 1997. At that point, in the initiative of John Ricardo, who was a board member then, the board passed a resolution that no committee can spend money without coming to the board. That flew from the fact that the grounds committee, we had a budget, and we actually could do whatever. And that resolution changed it.
Yes.
So committees do have to come to the board to ask for approval to spend money.
Okay, we've changed that. We've just changed it.
Flash forward to 2012.
Right.
Right.
We have just, if you look at the minutes of July meeting, you will see that the board passed a motion that changes how money is distributed to recognized committees that are budgeted. The first thing is, all committees that get money from the board will have a GL line. So it will show in the budget clearly what we are allotting to the committee. Second, any committee can spend the money in its budget as long as it fills out a form that is being created that will be sent to an officer for approval because it has to meet with your mission as a committee. So nothing gets, no check, no repayment of money, nothing can be done until you submit the paper. But yes, you have authority to spend the money anytime you want. If you want to go to the store and spend your money on buying plants without our permission, but you seek reimbursement, you have to fill out that form because you're not getting the money in advance. No committee will get the money in advance because all money belongs to the corporation. At the end of the year, whatever's left comes back to us. We don't have to go out and get it. We don't have to find it. We know it's been spent or not spent. And we can keep track of it because we know people are filling out forms that are saying, I want to do a printing for the shareholders about the grounds. Let's say that because I'm familiar with that right now. And they say, okay, this is how much in the budget. It's going to cost us $150 to do a mimeograph. Okay, they want to do that. They tell us who the business is. They tell us what they're printing. They attach a facsimile of what it is. And one of the officers will say, okay, we deduct this money from your account, because that's your budget line, and you can go ahead and do it. Here's a check to that company to pay for it. We'll write the check. We'll have it issued by CSR.
But Larry, would the officer could also say no?
Yes, they can, but
What happens then?
But it would go to the board because the board said as long as it is the mission of the committee, what they're spending the money on, it is appropriate. So if an officer decides not to do that, they should have their head examined because as long as it meets the requirement of the mission of the committee, it's appropriate.
So in effect, you're saying, yeah, the money is there, but we still need approval of the board because the board won't. So it's not like if you give me $100,000, I can just go ahead and spend it.
No. First of all, you'll never see $100,000 from the board. But
That was bad. Formally, you could go to the board and say, this committee needs $1,000 this year for our budget. And the board would vote and give you $1,000, and then you could
But
go
we
out
have to
shopping.
come to the board to get approval.
Now you say
not the board.
specifically.
That wasn't being done.
It wasn't being done.
It was not being done.
We were turning money over to certain groups. We're getting
Okay.
huge amounts of money.
Okay, got it.
To my ear,
Okay. Oh, you wanted the okay.
So-
You want to write the motion?
No, I just say, is it appropriate to do this?
We can do that, yes.
Okay, not until after the discussion.
Yes, Andrea.
no, I would just add that what Treasurer Andy Ackerman said at the July meeting was that it's the board's responsibility, they have fiduciary responsibility, and as part of that, they need to know how and where the money's spent, and that seemed appropriate to me, which is the reason for this.
Exactly.
I understand that,
Wait.
oh, I'm sorry, is there somebody else?
Yes, I think Lottie wants to. But you'll get a chance.
Do you set a limit to if it's allowed to spend or not? Under
Actually, yes, it's
3,500?
It'll be a budget.
And this is not on the bylaw. I mean, I was going to cover it, although
Yeah,
Larry's
because John is going to cover that when he does the
Okay,
final
okay.
report.
Well, we had to cover it. I'm sorry, John. We had to
Okay.
cover it.
All
We had no
right.
choice.
How did that come up anyway?
Yeah.
Popova.
No, it's not my fault. John, somebody else asked it. John responded, not responded to John.
Oh, okay.
Combining money issues with the bylaws issue, I understand that there's been expression that it's important to do this right now. And it's important, apparently, to call a special meeting at the cost of renting facilities.
That's not correct, Robin. You're
Is that
saying things that are not
Making
true.
an assumption that we do not have to rent facilities.
There's a red room.
Right.
I understand that it's allowed if it can accommodate the people, and they cannot.
No, it's not, there is no requirement for this kind of special meeting to have a meeting of the shareholders. The meeting of the shareholders will be convened in this room when they count the ballots, not to count the vote of the ballot, but to count the number of ballots to show that there's a quorum so that we can open the ballots and count the vote.
This is nothing new. We have been doing this.
It's done many times before, Robert.
Over the years.
The special meeting I'm acquainted with, you're well acquainted with also, which costs a considerable amount of money.
But we're not doing that, Robert.
We're not doing
You're
that.
saying you have the authority
Yes,
not
Robert.
to do that.
Yes.
And as I read the bylaws at the time, it seemed to me that it was done in the proper fashion by holding a shareholder meeting. On any special meeting had to be a genuine shareholder meeting, and that required certain accommodations. I will take another look at it and see if I agree with your interpretation of the bylaw.
May I, Robert?
Yeah, sure.
The attorney has told us we're correct.
The attorney was wrong about a few things, and I'm not,
I'm giving the floor to respond to this comment.
We had two major special meetings. We had one in March 27, 2006, to vote on the change in resale price. With another one on May 20, I believe it was, in 2008, at which we brought to a vote a proposal for open market. Both of them were held right here.
You were here, weren't you? You were
Yeah.
here.
I was here.
We
but,
was right here.
Remember those?
So we had precedent.
Yeah.
The precedent works for us.
I'm not suggesting that the attorney is wrong. I'm just suggesting that it wasn't how I read it a couple of years ago, and I'll take another look at it. That's all.
I won't wait.
Okay, one more question.
But I am suggesting that attorneys are not always right.
I make a motion. Cut off discussion.
You don't have to make the motion, I'm cutting it
Is
off.
it a motion? I'd like to make a motion to vote.
Okay, does anybody want to write a motion? Yeah? Yeah, but you need a motion.
I have another question about.
Wait, he's speaking. Robert, he's speaking.
I'm sorry? Here. Yes, Robert?
Madam Chair, point of information, are we going to be allowed to ask further questions after this apparent motion is considered?
No, we are switching,
Remember, we are
Then-
holding other meetings.
there is going to be a
Yeah.
meeting Sunday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
We're holding other
No, we
meetings.
have to move on to the flush report. We have 3 flush reports and we better get to them because we don't want to have 4 of them in November.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Bernie?
Is this vote necessary here in order for the board to proceed with what they're recommending?
No.
No, it's
No,
just
it's just a formality.
a formality that tells shareholder, well, MGCA has been looking at it and they believe it's a good idea to vote for it. That's all.
Continue on until October, it should be continue on.
Yeah, I think
you should wait for the motion to finish it so you can close out the
So we
thing.
can close it
And
down
then close it out.
Right.
Move on to these flash reports.
to the flush report. Because we need these for Sunday and Sunday. Okay.
I move to vote with regard to the work by the bylaw committee for bylaw revision.
What does it say? I move to...
Something like to amend
What's the motion? What motion?
Sherry's writing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
What's it called, New York Business
New York,
Business Corporation Law. New York Business Corporation Law. And Robert, the reason why we're doing it this early is because maybe the bylaw committee could meet and come up with things that the shareholders should see at the annual meeting.
Well,
as adverse
anything,
to never seeing anything at the annual meeting.
which has been the case for the last couple of years.
Well,
Yeah.
do you think that's healthy?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think bylaws committee has work to do. That said, though, I think also that the question of expense, I thought that it involved considerable expense.
It's going to be the cheapest way possible
Yeah.
that's allowed by law.
Yeah.
and according to our bylaw, actually, we can't even have an outside company do that. We have to do it in-house. The only bylaw amendment that we, according to our bylaws now, the only time the board can ask for an outside company to come in and run the ballot is if it's a issue that requires a yes vote by 51% of the eligible shareholder.
Which any amendment to the bylaws requires.
No.
No, only section 59.
59,
sorry.
60, and 61.
Right.
59, 60, and 61.
61. The ones related
I'll
If you
have
want
look
to know
again.
what they
I'm
are,
mistaken then.
if you want to know what they are, resale price.
Yeah, it's they.
There's only
All right.
one reason why.
How about
I'll take another vote.
Sherry, go ahead.
either?
I don't want to hold up the,
Okay, I defer to you on this, but either we commend or we thank the work of the bylaws committee on, no, that's,
How about endorsing?
how about,
What do you think about endorsing, Sherry?
can we endorse? I mean, I
Yeah.
thought we
Yes.
have, aren't we thanking you
Just
for
accept
your
it.
work?
We can thank them and
You can do
endorse
that
them.
too. I would like to thank the committee, by
You
the
could do
way,
both.
for the hard work that they
I would
did.
like
I had a
to
wonderful committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. They really did, we had a really, really very good dynamic meeting.
Yvonne and
Yvonne did most of the
Adele.
work.
Further on, talking about the committee.
Yes.
Yvonne and
Talking about
So
the committee.
I mean, we thank the committee, right?
Sure.
So how about we thank the committee, we thank the bylaws committee on its work to revise the bylaws to conform to the New York,
The bylaws about the bylaw committee.
MGCA.
right?
But
We're not endorsing the committee, we're thanking the committee for it, right?
Right, but you can also endorse
And you
the
can
changes.
endorse
Their suggestion.
The proposed amendments, you can endorse the proposed changes or amendments, if you feel like it.
Okay. We do have a quorum.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Yes.
The motion has not been made. Is it appropriate to make a comment about the motion before the motion is made?
No,
No, I think you have to.
you got to wait for the motion.
Yeah, I thought so.
How about this? We thank the bylaws committee on its work to revise the bylaws to conform to the NYBCL and endorse the proposed amendment.
Okay.
Amendments. Amendments.
Amendments. To the- But you need to write about to the amendment to the bylaws committee.
Amendments to the bylaws committee is what.
Amendments to the bylaws regarding the bylaws committee.
Right.
Amendments to the bylaws regarding the bylaws committee, right.
Yeah, I know.
Hopefully we'll never have to do this again because it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Just hopefully.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Well, I think that we should.
Well, it'll be done. Just
But then we have a comment.
well, he can debate it. Madam Chairperson?
Debate the motion.
Sir?
If I may, if I may, just if I may say this,
Yes.
if you vote this up, I am depending on everyone in this room who endorses this to go out when the vote comes and get your neighbors to vote, because this is a critical vote. And we need to pass it, because if we don't pass it, we will never be able to revise any other bylaw. because you will not have met the requirement of having a bylaws committee that meets the level that's required by New York Business Corporation law.
Okay, we thank the bylaws committee for its work to revise the bylaws to conform to the NYBCL and endorse the proposed amendments to
The bylaws committee.
You need
To
put the bylaws
to the
committee
bylaws,
committee.
addressing the bylaw committees.
No, but it's more than one section, bylaws.
Okay.
No, the bylaws referring to the bylaws committee.
The bylaws, yes.
Referring to
It's
the
got bylaws in there about 5 times.
Exactly.
but-
Yeah, I know. That's, every time I had wrote something,
All right.
I
It's
went
bylaw, which one right now?
Yes.
Yes, Louis.
Prior to the vote, will there be some kind of letter or sheet that gives a very simple explanation for what you want to do so that the shareholders can
That will be
really
included-
understand it?
That will be included in the packet.
No, before the packet.
He's right. On October 4th,
Oh, yes, there will.
we will be putting out a letter to the shareholders that will be created by Yvonne, the chairperson of the committee. It will go out on goldenrod paper, and I will sign it at the bottom to make it official that the president's putting her letter out to the shareholders.
And I
After
will
the 2 meetings.
That's right, October 4th.
do my best to avoid any phrases like the bylaws committee, bylaws, referring to the bylaws committee, etc. I will do my best to avoid that and make it as simple and clear as possible.
While we're waiting,
Yeah.
Yes.
what constitutes a quorum? I understand it needs to be a majority to pass it.
Okay.
Present people.
Yeah, how does that, what
I'm talking
constitutes?
about the vote.
For this,
Well,
for
we
the
voted
change?
The November vote.
Donna?
The quorum is 50 plus half of the eligible shareholder, which means there are 900 eligible shareholder, it will be 450 plus 1. 451 would
So
be a
at
quorum.
least 451?
No, it needs a majority of the quorum.
No, but that's how many people have to
At
vote.
least, yeah. So I can tell you that the quorum is usually around 470, 80. It basically depends how many people hold right now shares to two accounts.
So as you said, Larry, that it's very important to include
Very important.
everyone to.
I'm counting on Robert getting out and taking care of this in his building.
I'm sure it will.
Building organizations are certainly an
I'm sure it will.
important
They are.
tool for communicating with shareholders about important
Well,
Morningside Gardens.
And you're going to show us, right?
Yeah. Our building organization will discuss it and see what we think.
That's good to hear that, Robert, after we've had all this legal advice. I'm glad to hear that you're going to place yourself above.
We're led, our building organization is chaired by the prosecuting attorney from
We want to get this motion in
Bronx,
motion.
so, or a prosecuting attorney from Bronx.
Okay, so motion will be it.
Okay.
Robert, who's that?
Let me read it once again.
After this meeting.
Sorry. I apologize.
We thank the current bylaws committee for its work in revising the MHHC bylaws to conform with the requirements of the New York Business Corporation law. And we endorse the proposed amendments to the bylaws. To our bylaws.
That's
To
great.
our bylaws.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay. Who? Okay, the motion was made by Bradley,
And seconded
by Kevin
by...
Bradley, and seconded by Ann Jackson. Yes.
Right.
What will happen when this gets passed? Where will it be posted? Will it... What I'm trying to say is I think this would be more appropriately done after the 3 meetings, because if this is posted before the next 2 meetings, people might think it's a fait accompli and decide maybe not even to discuss it.
It won't be publicized.
I don't think it will.
Because the next meeting is Sunday. I assure you, we are not sending out the minutes of this meeting by Sunday. I assure you. No one. So don't worry about it.
It would probably be
it's not
more effective if it was done after.
Yes,
This is just a formality.
It's a
not
formality.
going out. I don't think this is going out anytime soon.
Yes, okay. Are we ready to vote?
no,
We have debate on the...
Okay. Go ahead. 1 minute.
Yes, I oppose the adoption of this motion, not because I don't commend the committee, and not because I don't support, and I think I will, the proposed change. I oppose it because MGCA is not what it appears to be. It is not a representative organization of shareholders. It is not representing the different building organizations, all of them, in Morningside Gardens. There aren't even building organizations in some of our buildings, and the ones that claim to be building organizations haven't met as building organizations some of them haven't met for years, and some of them haven't had elections for years, and therefore the representatives in this hall, while maybe all of them were actually elected in recent times, they are, I believe, not representative of Morningside Garden shareholders, and therefore should not pretend to be.
Robert, thank you.
I guess it's representative of the
Yes,
people who
Edwin?
come to meetings.
I think Erwin Robinson, Building 5. I think Robert raises a good point.
Okay.
It may be sidestepped at the moment, but the question of allocating MGCA's blessings should be based upon a fair democratic representation of the buildings, which we can discuss at another time.
All right, fine.
MGCA has always represented the people who took the time to...
Who is supporting the motion?
Opposing?
Supporting.
Support of the motion.
There's got to be a time.
17. I think we are taking the vote. Okay.
No.
Okay, I have to vote. One more time, please. I'm sorry.
One more time in favor.
What was this?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 for it. Against? 1 against?
We have 17 here. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, you did. It's counted before, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we have a quorum.
but do we have a quorum at the time of the vote?
Yes,
Yes, nobody left.
Yes, we have a quorum. Everybody ready to call?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so 16 for, 1 against, abstention?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any abstentions?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your work.
Thank you for having us.
And I do commend you for the hard work you've done.
Okay, now, okay, next is the flash report, the flash report by First Vice President John Carter, who was a member of the Bio Committee, among other things.
Good, keep going, John.
Okay. Does everybody have it? Anybody need a flash report? Do you need, Yvonne, could you please use the
Can we start?
Yes, may we start, please?
You want to sit there or sit over there?
I thought I was giving this back to Sharon here.
Does anybody want to hear the report?
On to the flash report.
So how does it work here?
Okay.
Questions after each topic or questions at the end?
No, at the end. We'll do it at the end of each flash report. We have about barely 40 minutes.
Okay.
So you might need to pick and choose the most important thing. John?
These are
It's
all
discretion.
special meetings, yeah?
One is special meeting, yeah. Which one are you starting with?
July 31.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to cover the July 31 report, and obviously because we don't meet in August,
Special or regular meetings?
it's the regular meeting.
July was regular meeting. Go ahead.
Some of this stuff is stale, you already know about it, there have been changes. For instance, you all know that back in July there was a partial stop work order because someone had, a shareholder had called in a complaint, and then someone from the Department of Buildings came and confirmed that, and there was a stop order. The stop order was subsequently lifted. The only thing that and the work went on. The only thing that I want to say about that is this last line: shareholders witnessing infractions or having concerns regarding local law construction work should contact the Department of Public Safety. While shareholders have every right and should report all violations that they think they see, I think it would really be helpful if first they would report anything that they see, anything they think are violations to the office. And then, if it's not corrected, obviously they can call downtown. Because every time we have a stop work order, things stop, and it takes a long time to get started again. All right, so I guess in ongoing with that, if anybody wants to know, as I have been told, the latest schedule is that by the end of October, Building 1 should be completed, and the facades come down if the city allows it. Is that
Right. The key here is the Department of Buildings is a city agency. It must be applied you have to apply to remove the bridging. The way the city's been behaving toward us in particular, we're not sure what that answer is going to be. It could wind up being that the bridging will be up on this entire complex until every building is finished. We won't know that answer until they attempt to take down the bridging for Building 1. That will be the test. God only hopes it happens, because I'd love to see the sunshine one morning.
Yeah. So we can all keep our fingers crossed about that. All right, Irene, as of, I don't want to say what's been going on in July, because we're now in September. But as I understand it now, there are now 36 apartments outstanding, but of those 36, 29 are on hold, either because the shareholder requested it, or because they're repairing the balcony drain. 5 have been scheduled for repair, and 2 have reimbursements pending. So as of now, I think we can say that everything has been taken care of, right, Larry?
Yes?
Yeah, I held it from shareholders this week.
Yeah. All right. Additional accounting personnel support. Because, as we all know, there have been a lot of problems, with the accounting, with the maintenance charges. CSR has agreed, and they are providing an accountant to work up here, they're working up here.
He works up here on 1 day a week.
1 day a week for free. And I think because of that, a lot of the problems that were in the past are being addressed now. Inspections, you don't want to need to hear about that. The laundry rooms, we've gotten the Mac Corporation to have people up here twice a week, because there have been lots of problems with the laundry rooms and the machines. Now they're up here twice a week and working on all those issues.
And they must
Formerly up here.
twice a week.
No, they're up here twice a week now.
Now, what was
Beforehand.
before?
I think it was when we called.
It was a call.
Oh.
And before they leave the property, they must report to Tom Gerbino. Tom is the one that instituted this. Tom is the one that's making sure these machines run. This company is towing the mark.
We now have an arborist. The arborist has already looked at some of our trees. As a matter of fact, the arborist is going to be up here Monday. There's going to be a tea. The grounds committee is hosting a tea. I have a flyer here if anybody's interested. And Monday at 4:30 to 6:30, where you'll meet the arborist, and you can drink some tea and maybe have some cookies.
He's a very talented fellow.
Very talented, and certainly with all the stuff that's been going on around here, our trees are really, and our grounds are really in bad shape. and he's already made some inspections, and he's identified some of the trees that need to be worked on, either because of safety issues or because they've just been deteriorated. So that's ongoing now, and I urge everybody who can to try to meet this guy on Monday. Chimney, local law 11. Larry?
Okay. All right, so here's where we are. As you know, the bricks are up on the building, and Bren did that in pretty good time. Now, yesterday, I had a meeting with International Chimney, myself, Russell, Tom Girbino, and later on in the meeting we called in Frank, the site safety guy. Todd from International Chimney, who has made no one his fan, came in and sat down and told us, when he was asked the question, what's your timeline now to finish it? He told us more than 2 weeks. I then informed him that it had to be done on October 1st. He said, well, no, that's not 2 weeks. I said, yes, it's now October 1st because we can't go any further than this. So what we told him was, and we had him agreeing to it, but we had to call Frank in to find out if we could do it. He was going to work Saturday and Sunday here. But when Frank came in, we asked about filing the permit. Frank said, now the city requires the permits to be filed on Tuesday for weekend work. We missed the date. So instead, he's working 12-hour days starting tomorrow. The expected completion date is October 4th. On October 4th, maybe earlier, maybe 1 day earlier, we expect to fire up the boilers. When we fire up the boilers, you have to remember that these boilers have not been used in 1 year. They are going to break down. Not because they're broken, but because the parts have to get back into shape and move. We're going to keep the temporary boilers on site to protect us until we are sure. We'll probably keep them on for three weeks or so, until we are sure that our boilers are capable of functioning the way they're supposed to function, which they are. I mean, they should, once they're running, they should be okay. Meanwhile, on the Monday following the startup, there'll be a meeting of all the parties on the temporary boiler, because the temporary boilers and the fuel tank have to get out of here at some date. So there's going to be a coordination meeting as to what has to happen, who has to do what, and when does it have to be done, so that these things will get off the property. And then we will be exclusively on our boilers. So in terms of the chimney, it looks like we are finally seeing the end of the tunnel. And that's the best news I can give you.
We're going to do questions at the end?
Yes.
No, they're not working Saturday.
You're going to break your rule?
Yes.
Thank you, Larry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
All right.
You're the chairperson. Break the rule.
We continue to have an owner's rep who's here on a month-to-month basis. He attends the local law 11 meetings, and he's provided expertise to make sure that Brand and everyone else is moving forward expeditiously and appropriately. The Grounds Committee report on August, the chair gave a report. She concentrated on the fact she's very concerned about pets and pet owners. Some pet owners, just indiscriminately allow their pets to relieve themselves on the grounds or on the grasses. And that's really bad for our grounds. And
they don't pick up, too?
And they don't pick up. Instead of, taking your dogs or either allowing them, picking up from the cement or taking them off the property, they allow them to do that. So that's creating a real problem.
Let's see, is that July?
Yes. Bottom of page 3.
Okay,
On July, the Amenities Committee gave a report. They were going to meet and report at the next board meeting.
But I gave them a deference because they were working very hard and they hadn't come up to the final part. So October is their new date.
I'll have Larry speak to this also with regard to the treasurer's report. Initially, we thought we were going to have a $400,000 deficit because of fuel costs have been so high, but that deficit has come down over the last several months because...
Okay. The reason why we've had such high fuel costs is because the temporary boilers have to burn more fuel to keep a higher pressure feeding our steam, and during the winter months we had to feed our heat. So up until March we were using oil. In March we went over to gas when we could run just gas, and that would be the small boiler. And when it was a really cold day we had to kick in the oil boiler. So what's happened is, because of this tremendous amount of fuel that we're burning to keep these boilers at a higher pounds per pressure, the fuel was just astronomical. We spent $400,000 extra in fuel this year, directly caused by the fact that we were not on our own boilers. In July, I was having nightmares of what I had to do. And so was Andy, your treasurer. And we discussed this back and forth, and we were trying not to do it, and then we were thinking, yes, we have to do it. And then we called Russell, and we said, look, Russell, looks like we're going to have to do it. And Russell said, hold tight until Mindy gets the report in. By the time Mindy reported, on by Tuesday night at the board meeting, the report from Mindy said that deficit that we would have had for the fuel was mitigated because of the work that Russell did in controlling the costs of this corporation. The savings he made on this side actually led to a mitigation of the fuel costs. So the deficit that we're dealing with, that you are paying that we are paying a surcharge beginning October, is for $100,000 instead of $400,000. And that made me feel much better, because I don't even want to do the 100, but we have to protect the corporation, that we will not have a deficit. Because as everyone knows here, for 3 out of the previous 4 years, there were deficits totaling over $3.6 million. Only 1 year was balanced, that was the last year. To have another deficit when we're under this new loan, when we're trying to sell apartments and lawyers look at our finance sheets, would be detrimental to us in terms of how we are looked at as a corporation. So we have to protect the corporation. We had to have the surcharge of $100,000, and we believe we will end the year flat. And that's what we want to do.
Because of the savings of Russell.
Because of the savings of Russell and the little surcharge we need. Because Russell's good, but he's not God. He can't make it go away completely.
Thank you. All right, you'll see on page 5 what we were talking about before. Resolved that each committee or group will have its own general budget code in the operating budget, and will be permitted to spend funds up to their budget line by submitting each specific request for payment to the treasurer or any other officer, and then after obtaining approval and submitting an invoice, they would be paid. Now, Lottie, you had a question before,
Yeah, I had a
and
question.
I apologize for it.
That's done, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but no, we didn't answer your
Go
question.
ahead. Now we can answer the question. Go ahead.
Well, the question was in regard to the arborist. When he came up with the estimate of 21 trees, he has now researched and found that they had to be pruned. And the money he needs is $3,500.
$3,500.
That I think that's in the budget, but can it be spent without asking the board?
Well, I think that's money that was prior. This
Right.
doesn't go into
The
effect.
money that's there is prior, but Lottie, we would not stop the pruning. The pruning has to be done.
Yeah, sure.
We have to make the trees safe, and we have to save the trees.
Right.
You can't plant a 50-year-old tree in 1 year. You know, it takes 50 years to grow that tree.
Right.
So you want to keep them alive going into the future. So yes, the board would find a way to make it good if there wasn't any money, but I believe that's in the budget for the pruning to be done.
This year.
May I ask one
Go ahead.
In that, can I assume, or the
You should never assume money.
that this policy of keeping the police and us safe will continue because, that we can hire.
Well, of course. The committee is going, the grounds committee is going to submit. Andy has already sent out an email to, I think it actually went through Donna, but we're sending, a notice went out to all the committee groups telling them that it's time to start submitting budgets because this is October. And we want to, and November is when the budget month is, and we have to put all these calculations in.
And you have a very active committee, grounds committee, and committee members, so. All right,
Then we
now,
have to make
Another question.
are there any, first of all, well, I just open it up to questions on the July flash report. Ron?
I have a couple of questions. One of them concerns budgets for the elections committee, which, as I understand it, they don't have a budget. Maybe they do now.
They don't.
But they don't. They are not a board committee. They are a shareholder committee. And is the board not giving them a budget because the shareholders have to do that?
No.
Or
Shareholders never had to do anything. You've never given $1 to the.
yeah, it's always been through the board.
The
right?
board, they, Robert,
Yeah.
if they say to us, we have to talk to the attorney, we tell them, call up the attorney, you're going to be speaking to the chairperson of the board committee. And we pay the bill.
You monitor their.
We don't monitor anything. We pay the bill.
What if they wanted to hire?
They can't. They can't. It's House counsel. Whatever is being interpreted has to be done by House counsel. There is no outside counsel for them. That's the rules. That's the way it's been done for over 50 years, Robert. And I am not one to change it just to change it on a whim. It's been satisfactory to now. It'll be satisfactory in the future.
I'm asking a question about the authorization of money and who controls. And it appeared to me that you were giving committees.
What is the July report? We're talking about questions for the July.
No, it was about the budget. It was, and the authority to spend money if you have a budget line and the supervision of the board over what that money is spent on.
Excuse me, let me respond.
That's what it was about.
We don't
Let me respond to
And
it.
Larry answered it.
Robert, excuse me, let me respond to it. I was on both sides of the aisle, okay? The election committee does not need money. The only time the election committee needs money is they don't need money. We print the ballots. We mail the ballots, okay? The election committee doesn't do that. It goes from the board office takes care of printing and mailing the ballots. There is no reason for the election committee to have money. The brochure is being prepared by our board office executive and it's paid by the budget. They are not dealing with money. They have no business dealing with money.
I'm not entering into a debate about
That's all.
that. I was just trying to clarify authority and...
That's a clarification.
George Carter, a question on the July, specifically the chimney.
Nobody calls me judge in here.
I'm sorry.
I think we all call him John. He likes that.
Thanks, John. Okay, Building 5 shareholder approached me and said, what's going on with the chimney? And he cited, for instance, his impression was it was not put out for bidding. And also, in past MGCA meetings, we were all told how great it's going to be to have it done by May 31st. Here it is 4 months later, it's not done.
January 31st.
Okay, so now, here's the question. Aside from what he said about bidding, which I don't know about, which he thinks it should have gone out for bidding, I don't know. But in the 16 years I've been here, when time limits have been exceeded, there were day-by-day penalties. What is going on with our chimney, and why are they paying for this effort that has been less than standard?
Okay, here's the answer. We're not going to answer you. And not because I don't want to answer you. I can't answer you.
You understand?
No, but go ahead.
You're not grasping what I'm saying?
Then you can't answer me?
I can't answer you. Not because I don't want to answer you.
Oh, you're not committed.
Right.
Thank you.
Melanie?
You mentioned that October 4th, the boiler will be working, but it looks like this only a fraction of the chimney up there. How can,
They're going to work 12 hours a day. It's a pipe. They're going to mount that pipe. As soon as they get to the top of that pipe, we're going to turn on our boilers.
are they going to be cementing it all the way up to the?
No, it's not. No. If you look at the chimney, you will see for the first time in all the weeks we've been watching this thing go up, they poured the cement at the base of the chimney, which is now 10 weeks behind, but they finished it today. The rest of the chimney goes up and goes through the guides that are there. Those guides are the support for that chimney standing up. So there's your support. Everything is in place. So once they top the chimney with the final piece, we can turn the boiler on.
But will there be any more covering like I said?
No, there will be no other covering except at the base where someone could touch it and burn their skin right off their hand. That will be insulated and it'll be protected and no one will be able to hurt themselves.
A more general question that maybe you can answer, but it's related to yours, Kevin. Can you give us what you interpret as the major reason for what appears to outsiders as a snafu of the chimney?
You don't want me to do that. You don't want me to do that because you wouldn't be happy with my answer.
Well,
So I'm not.
I phrased it as your interpretation.
No, it's not an
Let's
interpretation.
just say we're all
right.
we're very upset.
Okay.
Very upset.
Okay.
John?
I know you worked very
John,
hard to
okay,
get it.
we're running out of time. Let's go to the next flush report. Thank you.
All right. August. We had a special report on the special session in August for the sole purpose of meeting the senior property manager, assistant general manager, Sabrina Bowman. I don't know if anybody's met her, but you should go by and meet her. We interviewed her and we were very pleased with her, and now she's working here. September report. The electrical charges. As some of you may know, for June and July, there were some very sky-high electrical charges. Many shareholders were upset and stunned. Our general manager, Russell, met with many shareholders, fielded many calls, and he explained at the last board meeting, because of the 3 heat waves during that particular period, was the reason why there were these unusually high electrical bills. We talked about Irene. Let's see. The general manager is going to be working with council to establish a schedule of fines and fees for violations. Once that's done, he's going to bring it to the board, and the board is going to discuss it and vote on it. Fines for things like, we were talking about pets before. It's a real fire hazard to keep things in the hallway. People don't really know that. But the fire department could fine us for shareholders to have things in the hallway. We talked about local law 11. The communications committee. You're working on that, right, John?
John's working on it.
John.
The amenities committee is going to give us a report at the next board meeting, although we did vote on bicycle storage. You can read it here. Grounds committee, the chair presented a proposal to establish in honor of campaign. You can read that here. We all think it's a very wonderful proposal, and it's something we're going to be moving forward on. We talked about the bylaws. Larry's talked about the treasurer's report and the fact that our deficit is going to be much lower than we had originally thought. And parking spaces. You should all know that the public safety is going to be looking at parking spaces and checking the cars to make sure that the cars that are in the space are supposed to be in the space. And any ones that are not, they will hear from the board and or the security.
Well, it's even more than that, John.
So they get fined.
Well, no, they're not going to get fined. They're going to lose their spot. We will tow you out of that spot if you sublet the spot. What's going to happen is anybody caught subletting will be told to scrape the decal out of the window and get their car out of that spot and never park on this property again, because if your car is seen again, it's going to be towed off the property. And you can go get it from the Bronx where they'll be towing it to.
But they'll be given notice first.
No notice. Once they are told that they are improperly using that spot, and they're told to turn in the decal, if they don't do that, once they've been given that notice, then that will happen.
Yes.
Fire department fines. We've been told in the past that includes bicycles, strollers, and furniture.
Yeah.
Is it still the same?
Yes, I've been told it even includes shoes.
And pictures on the walls?
No.
No,
Okay.
actually, it's the things on the floor. And actually, technically, we're not even supposed to have doormats.
All right.
That's also...
Okay. Thank you.
What about
Yes.
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Larry, I heard you at the last board meeting talked about the serious problem of subletting of the parking spaces. Now, you mentioned a figure which I wouldn't hold you to. The question I'm asking is, could you define the problem? And then the question, is it anything like the last couple of years where we had 45 roughly illegal spots and thousands and thousands
That's a heck of a question. Let me answer.
The question is, could you define the problem of subletting?
I'll define it very simply.
Yes.
Shareholder goes away on vacation and rents his spot to someone else in place of his payment to the board. He's still paying the board, but he's collecting a fee from somebody else. In the contract you sign, it's a contract that the shareholder signs with the corporation. It says you are not permitted to do that. The minute someone's in that spot, and we'll know because they're at every shift, they're keeping track of the spots. Vincent Montalvo has put a procedure in place, and we will find you, whoever it is, and we will tow you after we've told you we're going to lose you're losing your spot if you don't get out.
Now, you know for years, many of us in the teaching and other professions go away for 2-3 months, and the space is vacant. And it has been precedent or policy or procedure, let us put it that if I'm not using my space, I go to the Captain Montalvo in this case, or whoever it was, and I say, hey, John Carter is using my space, is it okay? And they give me a special slip. Is that okay?
No, we don't believe so.
But that has never, you understand, no.
We're not talking about, there's no 2 months subletting of the spot.
That is not really, what if I say, hey Larry, come away, use my space.
You know what? If someone comes and they're visiting and you're not here and they need it for a day,
no, I'm talking.
A day.
I'm talking.
No, you're not listening to me.
But you're not
a day.
Listen to me. Put policy and precedent in Morningside.
No, there is no policy and precedent.
Listen to me.
There is no such thing.
You're interrupting me, Larry.
But you can't say
Please.
Policy and precedent. Why are you using words that aren't true?
Let me. All right. Cancel policy. It has been precedent.
Why are you using precedent? It's not true.
You want to bet $1,000?
Show me where the corporation said it's precedent.
I'm not arguing with you. If you want to change the law that no one can use my space or your space in our absence, that's fine. I have no problem.
It's a contract. It's not our policy.
You're interrupting me again.
You keep saying things that are not correct. What do you want me to do?
I said that the board can issue a policy and to vacate the spot if that issuance is not there. Fine, I understand.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying, parenthetically, you've been here a long time. I've been here a longer time.
Yes, you have.
It has been not policy, precedent.
It's not precedent.
Larry, let me rephrase, because you speak English and I'm a communications professor, right? Listen, it has been practice, cancel precedent. It has been practice that if I'm away, I'm using me for 2 months, and I say, Larry, you want to use my space, go ahead. And I go to Captain Montalvo, whoever it was, and I say, listen, I want you to know that Larry Giordano is using my space. He's got the Cadillac 103 there, and everything is cool. That has been happening. Now, if you want to change it, the board wants to change it, I have no problem.
The board has decided that practice should no longer be
Fine,
continued.
then you're stating that explicitly.
Yes.
That you may not let anyone use it, you may not, quote, sublet it in any form or fashion. So that space that I use, I'm using me, will be vacant for 3 months. And if I want you, John Carter, to use it, except for a day or two, as Larry says, no good. You'll tow it away, you'll...
No, we'll give you warning.
You'll give me a warning, and you'll throw me out of the space.
Correct.
Okay. And is this going to be a board decision?
It's been done.
It's done?
It hasn't been communicated, though, to
It
the
has not.
shareholders.
Yes, you have. You received a memo from the general manager.
Yeah, but that was very...
That was very clear.
Specifics
No,
of
it
the
was
policy
very
have not
general.
been set.
It was very clear.
It was very general.
You have
I understand the contract, Larry. My suggestion to you, to clarify it for the many shareholders who have done this over the years in practice, not policy or precedent, make it explicit.
Why don't we just have them send out another?
I'll have him send out another one. If you allow, this is what it's going to say,
Go
so
ahead.
you're clear.
You don't have to...
You allow anyone to use your spot. Anyone to use your spot, you will be breaking the contract.
Okay.
We've ordered already that no worker here can use any shareholder spot. We've taken care of that 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And now we're taking care of this second piece.
Okay.
Because every dollar, because we know for a fact, there is at least one shareholder, I am very certain, received a fee while they were away.
Larry, why don't you explain why we're doing this?
Larry, there are other... This has been going on. I understand what you're saying. Go ahead, what's the issue?
You said
Go
it's
ahead.
been going on, but...
What? What's the issue?
Did you have another question?
I do, but this man has his hand up too.
Oh.
Okay. Laura, my 2 children have gotten cars. At winter and spring vacation, there could be 1 of 3 cars in my parking space. They might rotate. Often I put a car over in a friend's place in New Jersey. Is there a problem with this?
It's a family member coming home to their parent.
Okay.
We call it the Venza Montalvo, and they'll probably use the spot in rotation.
Because on a Friday afternoon, I'll put the car on the street.
You own the spot. It's not, you're not letting some person use the spot. You're letting your family use the spot.
Very good.
So family members may use the spot.
But they're not using it for 2 months. He's not talking about 2 months.
Will you make explicit the termination, please?
This is explicit.
Yes.
We're going to tow your car if you're letting somebody park there.
That's not explicit, Larry.
Yes.
It's pretty
Well,
Gee,
come.
all right, before you ask a question, I am the secretary, Marcia Duffy. Would you please give your first and last names, because I do not have total memory for names. In fact, I have a deficit where name memories come in. And I'm instead of listening to your question, I'm thinking, who are you? So thank you for doing
Yeah,
that. Even if you know I know
You
you.
know my name?
Yes.
Irwin Bronson, Building 578.
Right.
Are there any other questions?
I'm going to leave the cars for a moment.
That's nice.
And
And you're going to tell me you're Robert, even though I know. Just please, everybody tell me.
but the cars distracted me so much, I'm going to defer to somebody else until I can get my head together about this, what it was I was going to ask about. I thought I wrote it down, but I don't see it right away.
You got from... Okay, Building 5. I just want to, maybe a brief description of, you have a property manager and a senior property manager and a general manager.
Correct.
And what is the difference in their functions? I mean, what is it, you have a senior property manager and you have the other guy with, what's the other manager is called?
She's the assistant.
No,
what is the difference in their functions?
One is the boss.
Which one is the boss?
The general manager.
Okay, yeah, right.
And everyone, Russell's the boss.
Right.
And everyone else in that, of the 3, work for him.
Right.
And it's descending order of authority, because it's based on experience, knowledge, and ability to function. So Sabrina is number 2 to Russell. If Russell weren't here, she'd be running this place. She would be the point person for everything. Well, yes. And then after her come Tawana and Lisa.
But specifically what her function is, I mean, Russell basically decides what her function is.
Okay, tell me again, Russell is the...
General manager.
Russell German, oh.
Yes, Russell German is the gentleman who mitigated our incredible deficit.
Okay,
Okay?
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I do remember my question. I don't know, Lonnie wants to
Just 1
go.
minute, and lucky 1 minute, and it's almost done, Stephanie.
The question has to do with the report by the general manager regarding the electrical charges.
Yeah.
And it appeared to me, if I read it correctly, that Building 6 has not been able to, they've not been able to specify the electrical charges for a couple of years. It's been going on. And
Building 6?
that's what he said, I believe, in that report.
No, it's my letter.
That's what you said in that report. And living in Building 6, you would know about this. And as I understand...
When did you move to Building 6? I thought I didn't move. Oh, okay.
Oh, you live in Building 1, I'm sorry. I thought you lived in Building 6. But in any case, the question is, does the general manager have a plan to figure out exactly what each shareholder in Building 6 owes for 2 years? Because I take it that we've all been paying whatever they've not been paying, or they've been paying maybe more than they should have been paying, and we've been getting a break. And so it's very important for equity purposes to figure it out precisely, and I wonder if you can.
I can tell you everything.
He can?
No, I can't. I'm going to tell you an answer. Okay? First, we have to fix the problem. Then we have to see if we can recover the information. When you recover the information, then you match it up against what each shareholder paid over that time frame, and either we owe them money or we have to collect money.
Right, and it could be substantial.
No, I don't think it'll be substantial. I think it'll be an amount, whatever that's going to be. Because the estimation was done as soon as it kicked off, and we had been on this for a while, so they used like a year's worth of stuff to figure out what every apartment was spending, and they try to keep it. But it could be off if someone added, let's say a new shareholder moved into an apartment in the last 2 years, and there was only one air conditioner, and they added a second air conditioner. So in June and July and August, their charge would have been greater than in the July and August that they were estimating from. So yeah, there's a problem, but here's the issue.
But he's on.
But you didn't hear my answer. See, I'm going to say it again. Once you fix the problem, you have to see if you can recover the information that has not been transmitted.
But that's part of the problem.
No, the non-transmission, I want to be very clear. The non-transmission of information is the problem. Whether or not the information has been stored for 2 years in the system so we can recover it once it can be transmitted is going to be the issue after we fix the problem. Okay?
Okay, one more question, and we have to...
Yes, it's not a question. Today's the 27th, and I haven't received the maintenance bill. It's the end of...
Neither have I.
For September?
Yeah.
For October?
Yeah. And it's the end of the third quarter, and I wonder if the corporation doesn't have to pay bills or taxes on the first.
We're okay.
So
we're okay.
Isn't there...
We'll get the money.
Just a quick question.
You have one more question? No. Okay, now, you have a question?
Quick question, comment. That email, or that letter came out saying that the problem was all in the summer and in the rates. But on my bill, and I was not a complainer, I wasn't even keeping track of it, I got in August a refund of so much error correction, and that was taken off.
Good.
So fine, there were errors, because either there were errors in giving me a correction.
No, there was a double. I had a double.
Yes.
I have double.
And that was July.
Yeah,
Yes.
double.
It was a strange thing in July. Look, every system has a mistake once in a while. But we didn't have our accountant on until July.
Okay.
So we have an accountant that's working here. We have straightened out the problems. We identified the problems, and CSR knows what the problems were. We do not expect a repetition. I make it very clear when these things come up. You got to fix it quickly, and I don't want to see it again because it makes me unhappy. And when I'm unhappy, I'm not a nice guy.
Okay, now, we cannot even approve the minutes today because I just had a head count, and the majority of shareholders that attended those meetings are not here. The delegates, so we have only like 10 out of 21 of June are here, and 6 out of 20 of the April meeting are here. So we cannot really approve the meetings of June and of June and of April. Okay, I think that everything else we will have to defer to the November meeting. I just want you all to know that I made it clear both to Wendy and to Robert that I'm putting them on the agenda, but there are good chances they will not get to speak tonight because we have the bylaw committee and we have 3 flush reports. Right? Okay.
That wasn't
Erwin?
me.
I think that.
Don't run away, I'll
Yeah.
speak to you.
Okay.
And
So,
I won't probably make it back to the next
can
meeting.
somebody else? Okay, you know, you really can tell me if there is another representative that will be in November. Okay?
Just one last comment. I just wanted to...
No more.
About...
We don't want to hear. We want to go
It's not
home.
9:30 yet, and it's my motion that's being put on.
No, do it. We're
I
trying.
mean, you are the chair, not Lottie or anybody else.
Enough.
All Robert is saying is that he knew it and he's accepting it. Right?
I did have one other thing to say to the people who came tonight about the value of MGCA and your presence here, whatever the representative status of the organization, your presence here is very valuable to the people who come here and have a chance to interact with you, and I thank you for doing what you're doing and taking the time to do it. Not just here, but throughout all of your work, which takes an unbelievable amount of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the
Thank
meeting
you.
is adjourned. The next meeting is on November 1st. I guess the next goal meeting
Erwin?
is
November 5th. Yeah, sure.
November 1st, Thursday. Thank you, everybody. May I have the conflict?